Well, now I want to turn to Martin Brechbiel, MMR, for his scratch building corner. Martin, welcome.
Evening, Jim. I'm not sure
How's it going?
I
You
don't
doing
know.
better?
Yeah,
You seem to be worse and worse every time I hear from you.
well, it's an advanced case of dry rot. You know, I needed a
Are
beverage
your teeth falling
to
out?
not
No,
yet, just my brain.
he gave it to me. That's why my tooth fell out, I'm sure.
I need an adult beverage to fortify myself after Santiago. How do I follow up after Key? Okay, well, whichever. We'll get this going now. Okay. Where were we? Let's see. Well, that's where we were last week. I hope it is, because that was the same slide I used last week, so it better be where we were last week. So we have a sort of a semi-gondola thing going on at one end with all these nut bolts and washers inside and outside, and a cradle for our brass tank. And, well, there's the brass tank car, or the brass tank. It drops right in there, and you can see, I'll back up where it's relieved on the ends. That cradles those curved ends of that tank. So it does sit in there fairly rigidly, but I mean, if you flip it over, it's going to fall off. So we can't have that happening. That would be, I think the technical term is bad. So we'll fast forward a few slides. So I went and painted all the wood parts. I've forgotten what that is. It's something that purports to be Southern Freight Car Brown, I think, which is actually a red. And the gray is a Canadian National gray. For some reason, I've kind of fallen in interest with Canadian National gray. I just found another bottle of Tom's favorite Floquil paint of Canadian National gray. So, it's nothing like the smell of Floquil in the morning to get your day going right. So we've added a few things here to the tank. We've got a little piece of plumbing out the back end here with a valve. Wiseman Models sells some really nice brass castings from the back shop line, the old back shop line. And I like to use these whenever I can. So you can actually drill them out and run your piece of tubing through it or up to it and out the other side. Do a little curved action, solder that all together and into the end. And this end, we have a little vent at this end. We'll come back to that later. And we've added two bands here that hold the tank in place. Tank's not glued in place. It's not glued or screwed or whatever. These two bands are actually functional. This one's down a little low. I probably adjusted that later. I hope I did. But that's just some Detail Associates 15 by 60 thousandths brass and 28 thousandths or 32 thousandths brass wiring soldered together, wrap it around it, stick it through the holes, a little bit of glue, a little bit of goo, a little CA, a little patience, and tank is secure. Just as easy as that. But I did it this way so I could paint the tank separately from the body. Well, we'll fast forward a lot further. A few more odds and ends. We need a little platform up here. Here's the U.S. Hobbies ladder. I put that together and bent it around a little bit and chopped it up a little bit and bent it some more. A little platform on top, some barrels. These were Tishi's barrels in this particular car. The bucket is literally is hanging there loosely. It's not glued or anything. It's just hooked around over that valve. That's what keeps it from falling off. Got brake wheel and ratchet and pawl added at the end. There's probably a better picture from the other angle. Yeah, well, it's not that better. It's a little out of focus. Well, that's annoying. It looked better when I did it the other time. Well, let's go back to this view from above. We've got a toolbox or whatever you want to call it box, really painted an ugly color of coach green and an extra resin passenger car seat I had because I figured, well, it's a maintenance away sort of car. Workers like to sit down a lot. If they're not leaning against something, they're going to be sitting down. So they need a place to sit. And of course, at this end where that vent was, whoever's working at this car needs a place to hang his hat. So he's hung his hat on the end here over this vent. Normally I would hang a raven off of this thing or a crow or something, but I hung his hat off of it. A little bit of weathering, light, nothing's too sophisticated as yet. I'll come back to this someday, maybe. If I have time while I'm building more cars. I've already got 5 more on my workbench right now. And here's our final product. It isn't his hat, obviously. He's got one on his head already. But he is seated, so that's he's found a home in a nice comfy chair. And he's ready to deliver oil or grease or molasses, for all I know, to wherever it's going to go. And I think that's the last slide on this car. So I have to get to work tonight yet and get something built. Because I may have to present something next week if Jim calls on me again.
Absolutely, you're going to be called on.
See, I'm in trouble already.
That's good looking, though. That
So,
really
yeah.
is.
You like that one?
Yeah, something different.
Well, maybe next week's will be different. I don't know. It all depends on whether the weather Friday and Saturday gets over 60 degrees. So I can go outside and paint. Otherwise, we're going to see an unpainted model at the end point, maybe. February is hard on painters.
Gotcha.
It's difficult to you can't paint in the house, as Tom has related. The lovely smell of float quilt wafting through the floorboards up the steps is not going to sit well with the better half. And even with my exhaust fans running, nothing's good enough. So outdoors I go, and if the weather isn't with me, well, things get stacked up in a different pile and wait for warm weather to arrive. So if anybody's got any questions, now's the time to scream them out.
Very nice looking model. Yeah,
it is. And don't forget, Martin is the editor of our newsletter. So if you'd like to share some information in the newsletter, send it to Martin. He's the person that you need to send it to.
And thank you, Tom.
Martin, thanks so very much. We will see you next week.